What's up, Sterile Processing Universe? It's Hank Balch here. You're watching another episode of Fighting Dirty. And on this episode, we're going to talk about how you can successfully find a job in sterile processing, even if it's your first job. So hang in here with me. But before we get into the content itself, if you're new to the channel, we do a ton of content here on Beyond Clean about professional development. We talk a lot about compensation. We talk about career growth. We talk about even how to get a promotion, how to take a break, and then come back to sterile processing, in addition to a lot of great content around education and particularly free CEs. So, if that's your kind of thing, I would love if you would take just a moment and subscribe to our channel. There's a subscribe button somewhere around your screen. Hit subscribe, then hit the bell. It may say, hey, you can't subscribe unless you log in. So, yeah, just do us a favor, log into your Gmail or whatever account it is, then hit subscribe. And then every time we drop a new video, you'll be notified so you don't miss out on the great tips and tricks, insights, and perspectives from across the sterile processing space. Okay, enough about subscribing. Let's talk about getting your job, getting hired. Now, I want to make a video that speaks to both of those groups. So, folks who are already in the sterile processing space, but maybe you're looking for a new job. And then all the rest of you who are tuning in, we've got a lot of them that are getting into the sterile processing industry for the very first time. Perhaps you're about to graduate from your training program. A lot of folks are doing online training courses now for sterile processing. Or maybe you're just sitting around and you're tired of working fast food, you're tired of working retail, and you heard about sterile processing. Someone said, hey, you should get a job in sterile processing. You get to work with surgical instruments and you get to do all these fun things in the hospital. And you're finally like, okay, I want to do that. But now where do I go? So you came to Google and you said, how do I get a job in sterile processing? And you found this video. Well, I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to hook you up with, I think, some of the best answers for how to do this out there today. Number one, get on LinkedIn. I know, surprise, right? You've probably heard about LinkedIn before, but if you haven't, it's a kind of a professional version of Facebook, if you want to look at it that way. It's really business oriented. And the unique thing about LinkedIn in the sterile processing space is we are highly engaged in LinkedIn across the sterile processing industry, particularly here in the US, but honestly, in many countries around the globe. There's a lot of European folks that are on LinkedIn. We've got a lot of Indian and Pakistan, Middle Eastern. We got a lot of Filipinos on there, all within the sterile processing space, even all the way out to Australia. There's a lot of folks on this platform talking about sterile processing. So, one of the first things and the best things that you can do is create an account and put on your profile that you are a student about to graduate on this date and you'll be looking for a job, or curious about sterile processing. That's all that you have to write on there. You do want to populate your profile with some of your background information, job information. I've got some other videos about how to do LinkedIn well out there, but um, create that profile and then start finding and following great sterile processing content. If you want a good place to start, in my opinion, track me down, Hank Balch, on LinkedIn, and follow me and connect with me, and then start seeing who's commenting on my stuff and who's following my stuff, and you can follow them. And that network just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And what will happen is you will be exposed to the hot topics and conversations in the industry today. You're going to start seeing managers and directors and supervisors and lead techs from all around the US commenting and connecting and attending education, watching videos. You're going to see the network grow. Even if you don't have a lot of personal connections on LinkedIn, if you don't have a lot of folks following you, you can follow them and start learning and engaging and hearing that conversation. Now, this is what makes it next level. So, number two, you've probably been recommended to create a resume, and you should. Everyone should have a good resume. I've done videos on resumes too. Highly believe in resume. Take your time with the resumes. But Just creating a resume without doing this LinkedIn part first, you're really behind the eight ball because now you got a resume, but who do you know? What do you know? Maybe you've had a great training program. You really love your professor. They did a great job, really invested in you, but your professor only has a certain size network. What LinkedIn gives you, back to the number one, it expands that network almost as big as the entire industry because you can continue connecting, even outside of your professor's contact or your friend's contacts that you happen to know in sterile processing. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So when you create that resume, number two, then you've got exposure to that resume for all of these potential hiring managers. And I know you may be thinking, hey, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I want to work in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't want to move anywhere. What does all this LinkedIn stuff have to do with me? Because I just need the people in Atlanta to know who I am. Well, there are people in Atlanta who are on LinkedIn who you probably don't know and who your professor probably doesn't know and your friend doesn't know. And they are hiring for sterile processing folks in Atlanta, and you can find them through LinkedIn. And they can find your resume if you post your resume on LinkedIn, uh, specifically tagging Atlanta, or, tag some of the hospitals in Atlanta. You can search for sterile processing managers in Atlanta through the LinkedIn search function. Really, really critical stuff. So, number one, I keep going back to number one. Get on LinkedIn, get active, and start engaging that conversation. Create your resume. Number three, kind of tied into that resume, and this is about your interview, getting that interview. And I know that's kind of the hardest part. Everyone's like, hey, I just want to get an interview. Can you help me? Like, how do I get that interview? Well, don't rely on the power of your resume alone. Don't rely on the power of your training program alone. I know you may think, hey, I've been trained, I've got my provisional certification, maybe. And so folks should be just knocking down my door to hire me. Well, that's not how the industry works. You should be proactive. And this is number three, be proactive in that interview phase on reaching out to and around that HR person. So let's say that you applied, I don't even know if this is a real hospital, but let's say that you applied to Atlanta General Hospital and they had an open sterile processing um, position, maybe for like second shift. Well, you apply. And typically, that's where a lot of folks will stop. They'll apply and they'll kind of sit back and they'll wait and they'll wait and they'll hope and they'll talk to friends and they'll be like, yeah, I applied. I haven't heard anything. I don't know what's going on. Well, you can do a couple things. You can try to find the phone number of the recruiter or the HR department at that hospital, call them direct and just say, hey, this is Johnny. I'm just calling to make sure that you got my application, even though you know that they did. I'm just calling to make sure that you got my application at that sterile processing role. And I would love to talk to whoever the hiring manager is or whoever the recruiter is to give a little bit more insight on why I think I would be a competitive candidate in this role. You're already putting yourself like top echelon of applicants. Nobody does that. Nobody calls. If you call and if you can talk to someone, if you get to that recruiter, if you get to the hiring manager, oh man, you're already at the top of that list. Now, get into the interview. So let's say, yep, I'm the recruiter. What can I do for you today? And then it's your time to sell. Okay, so you're going to be selling. I'm certified or I'm provisionally certified. I'm graduating in May and I want to start right away. I want to start working in June. I cannot wait to get a sterile processing job. And they're like, well, why are you going to be a better candidate than all these other candidates? Now, don't try to lay it on too thick. You know, yes, be confident, but don't be overconfident. If you're a brand new technician, they know you don't know anything about actually doing the job. You got to get in to learn to do the job, right? So don't be trying to sell that part of it. You can sell the book knowledge you have. Try to sell your personality, your work ethic, your commitment, your willingness to learn, your ability to be a team player. All those soft skills are really highly sought after, and actually they're difficult to find. But it goes back all the way to that number one again. In consuming that content through LinkedIn and all the engagement and conversations that you've been seeing, maybe the podcast that you've been listening to, if you listen to the Beyond Clean podcast, you're going to know things about the industry, hot topics. You're going to know some of the controversies. You're going to know some of the challenges out there just by listening and consuming that content. And you can bring that up and say, hey, I've been listening to this podcast, I've been watching these webinars, and I realized that man, there's a lot of challenges today in cleaning robotic instrumentation. I don't know the answer to that, but it really looks like it would be fun to learn and engage with and try to work through because I'm all about some challenges. You know, those things again are moving you so high up in that percentage in that bell curve of the not so good candidates, all the mediocre candidates, and then right down here, the upper echelon candidates. That those are going to be the ones that get the job offers. So the last thing I'll say in this video, in particular, to how to successfully get that sterile processing job, is in the interview. And I've heard people message me, even comment here on the channel and say, hey, they offered me kind of a low ball offer. It's not what I wanted to make. Should I take it? Well, I can't ultimately make that financial decision for you. If you can't pay the bills, then no, you shouldn't take it. But if it's just a matter of you want more, but this is an opportunity and you've been looking for an opportunity, take it. Take it, get in and get the experience. Start building that concrete network of people who actually know you as an individual in sterile processing. They know your work ethic, they know your skill. Get in, get those additional credentials or certification or education or micro credentials, whatever it is. Get your foot in the door, start working, start learning, because you're going to know so much more about the future trajectory of your sterile processing career if you get in it and get to work and you ever would if you try to sit back and wait for that magical job that's going to pay everything that you want, that's going to be where you want, that's going to be in the department that you want to work in. Like all those things are great, but you really miss out on all of that time in the department if you won't just get in and take that opportunity as long as it's enough again to pay the bills. You don't want to do anything that's going to be causing financial friction from day one. Okay. There's a lot more that I could say about that, and I will in other videos across the channel that we've already done. As I mentioned, we've done stuff about resume we've done things specifically about job interviews, but this one in particular is that kind of high level, what you need to do to be successful, and it all goes back to number one. I think you need to get on LinkedIn, start consuming and learning that content, and then everything else will flow from there. Plus, try to get someone on the phone. Try to call them. I know email and texting, that's what like Gen Z and everyone after, like that's what we want to do. But try to get the phone number, try to get someone on the line and show how excited and comfortable you are with learning this new job and how much you want to work at that specific department. Okay. Until next time, guys, keep fighting dirty, hang in there, and we will see you again soon.